Morning. Oh, wrong one. Right there we go. What's up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome back. Happy not Money Monday, but happy Taco Tuesday. We are back. How did everybody have a good weekend? Nice little what? 3-day weekend. Some of us had a 4-day weekend. Kids were out of school Friday, out of school yesterday, so we had 4 wonderful days with the family. But hopefully you guys had an awesome few days off. But most importantly, hopefully, you guys are ready to rock and roll. Excited to be back. Ready to see what the market has for us today because I am ready. Todd, what's up? Big Ron, what's up, buddy? It was a long one. It felt like a long one, dude. Yes, it did. It definitely felt like a long one, man. My goodness. Yeah, Friday's session was super choppy. And then futures last night, again, not too much in the futures market last night. Yesterday, not last night, yesterday. Open Sunday night. I think it took a trade Sunday night, yesterday morning. Can't remember. Yeah, it was yesterday morning, actually. I think it was like 9 o'clock. Took a quick scalp on NQ. And then other than that, futures were kind of dead yesterday until the short closer. But we'll see what we have today, man. You got the spine to Qs rocking on up. All-time highs. Woohoo! So we'd have a lot of opportunity. No, I'm joking. We don't have a lot at all. We don't have a lot. But we'll see what we got, man. We'll break it down. Today's going to be a day of patience. A lot of what you're going to have to do is some solid intraday analysis, find some solid confluences, and then rock and roll with some quick scalps, some quick base hits today if we can see some good setups play out. But we'll go from there, man. So today's going to be an interesting one in the market for sure. But here's what we can do. We can just look at your stocks for the day, guys, right? And see what we have, if anything. Help you guys get prepared and make sure we have a very productive, profitable day in the market. If you look at the economic calendar for today and the rest of the week, you're pretty much in the clear. You don't have any like high impact events or high impact data. Got a few Fed members speaking throughout the day today. Coming into tomorrow, 8:30, you got like building permits, housing starts. You do have FOMC minutes tomorrow, but I don't really expect too much with FOMC minutes. We already know what the Fed's going to do. They've made it clear. Thursday, we got jobless claims data. That could be a market mover. We shall see. A couple other Fed members speaking on Thursday. Then Friday, we got like S&P Global Composite Manufacturing and Services. That's medium impact data. So we'll see if that's a market mover. Home sales data, and then Michigan consumer sentiment. They're on Friday. So, I mean, we got some market moving stuff Thursday, Friday, but Tuesday, Wednesday, it could just be a slower couple of days. You don't really have any big names on the earnings calendar this week. So you're not going to see any kind of like Mag 7 stocks reporting or any kind of stocks that could move the market. So, yeah, we're just really at the mercy of the market. What's the market going to do? We got to keep just pushing on up in the all-time highs. If so, we'll try and capitalize on it. And we'll just sit back, be patient, and see what the market gives us. INTC looks interesting. Let's look at INTC, brother, man. Yeah, so INTC Thursday, Friday, there was a couple decent trades Thursday, Friday. We were coming up into some, actually it wasn't Thursday, Friday. It was Wednesday and Friday. So Wednesday, we were coming up into some lower time frame supply. Wednesday, we fell out of it at the start of the day. Thursday, nice big rip up. And then we did the same thing here on Friday. We came up into some daily supply there in pre-market, came into it again. They're at market open and flushed out pretty hard. But since then, we could see, all those orders most likely been taken out. Plus, that was a pretty, let's say, beaten up zone, but it was a zone that had quite a few points out of it. But we do have another daily zone of supply overhead here on INTC, right? So 26 to 2640. We can see there's going to be some daily supply, and it's not a continuation, which is nice. And we've only really been in it one time, right? This candle here on November 11th, that counts as one entry. It fell on out. So again, this will be the second time coming up into some of that daily supply. It was a nice little rally base drop. We can see sellers stepped in heavy from November 8th into November 11th and drove price down pretty sharply, fell about 2 points to the downside. And again, that was your first little entry there on November 11th. We're coming back up into that level today, so that could be an area where we get short on INTC. That's up between like 26 to 26.42. Now I'm curious, is it weekly as well? I mean, you have that nice little rally base drop. That's a pretty big zone, but the top end would look like some weekly as well. You can flip it down into like your lower time frames and really drill in. Some maybe like overlap that you see across those multiple time frames. So if we just kind of go on into the we're on a 1 hour. We want to flip it to a 4 hour to start. Where's she at? Ah, there it is. At least it's already a nice tight zone on the daily. Now we can get it tighter and tighter by finding confluences and trying to find some zone overlap. But overall, I mean, it looks pretty decent the way it is. I mean, you could probably grab some 4 hour and throw it right up here. It gives you a little bit of a tighter zone overhead. You get that rally, you have your base, right? Then you have your drop. So we'll go from the top of the basing candle down to that body. You probably bring it down here if you want, but it's still the same daily overlap. Tighten it up to the top end. You still came up into it. You tapped it once. You fell out of it. So, I mean, that's really the only thing that I'm seeing right now on INTC is you do have, again, some of that daily supply overhead, right? You never came back into it. That's cool. Do you have anything else? I mean, I would normally come in here and just, draw a zone up against those highs where it's like, hey, how many times did we come up and tap this little area of resistance before seeing that sharp move away? 1, 2, 3, sharp move. So then I would come up and just throw one of my zones of resistance up against those 3 days high. And that'll put you a nice tight zone between 26.30 to 26.40. So if INTC can get to that level today, I would be more than happy to get short. It's already looking like a really, low risk, high reward trade on INTC. So this is what a plan would look like. Looking to get short, right around like 26.30 to 26.45, somewhere in that 15-cent window. Probably getting stops like 30 cents above that zone, 30 cents above that daily supply. And then I would run it back down into Friday's high day to start as like your first target. And so you can see it's a decent little 4-to-1 trade today. If you want to go 20 cents of risk, which I still think 20, 25 cents above is plenty of risk on this trade. I mean, you're looking at a 4-to-1, 5-to-1 setup potentially on INTC, and that's going to be to the short side today. And that's already on the watch list. I think there's potential, but that's if we get up to like that 26.30 to 26.45. I mean, there's that gap, right? So I mean, let's say we push through that supply level, right? There's no unfilled orders. We don't hit them. We don't fall. And we break that tight zone of resistance that I gave you. And then we see it back test that level as support and we hold it. Then yeah, I would definitely flip long and think, hey, we can come up and fill the gap. And that gap level's all the way up around, like you said, 29. So it's like 28.95. And that's a possibility too, man. And again, if you see price push through that daily supply zone, I would literally just remove that zone altogether. See if we can flip and hold that zone of resistance as support. And if so, then look to play that long up to like 28.95 to fill the daily gap. But right now, if we come up into that daily supply level, stay below daily resistance, I'm first looking to get short for a quick little drop to the downside and still capitalize on that nice, 4-to-1, 5-to-1 setup. I think there's good potential there as well. That's what's up, Todd. That's what's up, man. I got $2,600 last week. You've been in for 36 days. Look, he's counting down the days. I've been here for 36 days. What's my success look like? Nice little $2,600 last week. That's awesome, brother. Heck yeah. Yeah, man. Absolutely, Big Ron. What else you guys looking at today? Anything else? The spy's easy, man. The spy's easy because there's not a lot to do. So you got to go right to the daily. And again, you don't really have a whole lot to do on the spy, man. So what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and create a zone around January 24th high a day and then Friday's high a day. That's going to plot a zone between 610.80 and 611.01. Then you're going to go ahead and throw a zone right here between 609.75 to 609.96. You can see there's going to be some resistance, prior resistance. We could see that level flip support today if we get there, but if we fall below it, then next area to the downside, you're looking at like 608.12 to 608.45. They're on the spot. And so those are like the three zones that I would even throw up on the SPY. Anything else, I mean, we can go find it when the time comes if we do see the SPY like falling and rolling on over today. But right now at this pace, simply does not look like that's going to happen, right? So, I mean, right now, there's only like two approaches to the SPY. Number one, can we pull back into that daily zone and hold it as support? If so, let's get long today. Back up into all-time highs. All right, that's game plan one. If we can see the SPY pull back, retest that zone, stay above it, then we'll get long. But if we never get back down to that zone, we're just going to have to go down into some like lower time frames and find confluences and just keep doing analysis and find areas where we have those multiple reasons to take trades. We can have some like lower time frame demand that we get long off of. Maybe that lines up with uptrends. Maybe that lines up with, Fib retracement levels. So what we're going to have to do is really just get down into those lower time frames, 30-minute, 15-minute, 5-minute, and just keep doing all of the analysis that we can do. And if we find an area where we have multiple confluences lining up, then hey, we can justify a trade, not off of a daily zone, but we can still see good setups take place. And that's going to be, game plan too, man. It's just kind of sit back, let the market open, let it move, and just keep doing that analysis until we find a great opportunity, if we can find one in the first place. And that applies to the Qs as well, man. If you look at the Qs, we really don't have a whole lot to go off of with the Qs. So yeah, I mean, you could just literally throw a teeny weeny little zone between 535.69 to 536, and then just mark up all-time high and then Friday's high a day with a zone 2 as reference. That's 538.84 to 539.20. And maybe we come back down and retest Friday's high a day and hold it as support. Plus, that's also the previous all-time high. We could see that level hold support and then see more upside today. And that's really all we have to do with the Qs. But same thing, man. Let the market open. Let's see where it goes. If it comes into one of our key zones, we'll sit back and we'll take trades off those key zones if we see something setting up. If we don't get down into those lower zones, then we'll just have to sit back, do multiple time frame analysis across those lower time frames, and see if we have any areas where we have those multiple reasons to take a trade. And if so, as long as we got good risk reward, man, we're ready to rock and roll. But that's what we're looking to do as we're in all-time highs, brother. How many stocks on your typical watch list? Curious if my eye on INTC was coincidental or I'm getting this. Yeah, so like there's probably 20 stocks that are on the top of my watch list. So like you can see I have a pretty big watch list, right? A pretty big watch list. I got a list of COVID stocks from back in the day. I got a list of hurricane stocks, stocks that move well when there's any kind of like natural disaster, for example. And then I just have a bigger watch list of stocks that I've traded in the past, stocks that move well, stocks that move over $1 on average per day, that typically trade more than 1 million shares. They have good options chains. Some of them are like subpar option chains. Some of them are good, nice tight spreads, options move well. And again, it just meets my criteria, right? A lot of those stocks. So you can see there's probably like 100 stocks on that watch list. And so what I'll do is I'll start on a daily time frame and I'll just tab through my watch list just like that. And if I see something that stands out to me at first glance, I'll further my analysis, right? Keep doing analysis and see if there's any reason to take the trade today. But that's what I do, man. So a lot of my stocks consist of, the SPY, the Qs, top holdings, a lot of the Mag 7 stocks, and then stocks, again, that I've traded before that move well, that meet that criteria that I just gave you, right? On average, they move $1 or more per day. On average, there's over 1 million shares traded per day. And then the options are decent enough to trade options on some of those stocks. And I just tab through my watch list and see if something catches my eye, right? If something doesn't catch my eye, you see I just tab down. I just keep tabbing down, and that's all I'm doing, man. And if something catches my eye, I'll go in and I'll keep doing analysis. Like Micron this morning, it caught my eye on Micron. Why? Because I see there's a big daily gap here. And I see that as of a Friday, we were inside of that daily gap. So what am I thinking? Well, if we come up to the top end of the gap today, we could get short for the gap fill short on down. So that catches my eye. So I'm going to go ahead and mark up that daily gap. Then I'm just going to flip this down into my lower time frame and see where we're at. Okay, cool. Top end of the gap is at 103.16. Where's price right now in pre-markets? Right around 102. Is it realistic that Micron gets to the top end of the gap today? It is. If it gets to the top end of the gap today, what could we see? A gap fill short. Is this something that I would want to trade? Yes. Do I think it can move more than $1 in my favor? Yes. Does the stock trade more than 1 million shares a day on average? Yes. Yes. And the options, are they decent enough to trade options on Micron? Yes. So it's like, yes, yes, yes. Stock has potential. Stock looks good. Stood out to me at first glance. It's on my watch list for today. And so I'll kind of scan through that entire watch list. And my objective is to look and find the top 3 stocks that stand out. That's it. Sometimes I have 5 stocks that stand out. Well, I want to pick the best 3 of the 5 and focus on the best 3 of the 5. Sometimes, one stock will stand out. Fine, cool. It's easy. I just got to focus on that one stock and see if it sets up. And that's it, man. I built a watch list of stocks that I've traded over the years. I like them. They meet the criteria. I scan it in the morning. Are there 3 to 5 stocks that stand out? If so, I analyze them. And then I determine which ones look the best and which ones do I want to look to trade for today. How is AVGO looking for today? I don't know. But let's go look at AVGO and let's see, man. Yeah, so AVGO, this is something that we talked about last week. We have this very tight zone of resistance overhead between 237 to 237.91. And if we wanted to get long on this, we would have to get above that zone, hold it, and then play it long to 244.50. But if we can't get above that zone, we could probably come back down and fill this teeny gap here on AVGO. Because there's this little teeny gap to the downside, right? Between 222.70 to 225. So it's a teeny little $3 gap. But big picture, you're inside of one big gap. But if you look at AVGO, you've already filled about 80% of this gap. So there's only 20% left to the upside. Could we still capitalize on that? Yeah, we got to break the zone, hold the zone, and then maybe come up and fill 100% of that gap. But if we can't get through that zone, I think you might see a bit of a pullback into that gap level first before maybe seeing buyers step back in. But where is it at right now in pre-market? It's just sitting at 232, and you can see it's been kind of flat here the past week. I mean, look at AVGO. You've been very flat here. When I say flat, I mean overall, you've been sitting sideways. I mean, you've been moving 7 points any given day, so the thing moves. But overall, you've just been sitting sideways underneath some of that, daily resistance. So with that being said, I mean, at first glance, I just don't really see a lot that stands out until we get above that 237 to 237.91 level. And if we ever get a break above that level, like intraday, and we see it holding as support, I would get long the 244. But that's the only thing that I see on AVGO that would interest me enough to want to trade this thing long. Other than that, I just got to be hands off until it sets up. Again, I would probably go in here and mark up this this daily gap. Right there. You get that gap. I would go ahead and mark up the gap on AVGO. That'll put you down around like 222.40 to 224.80. I'm going to take the bigger gap level off. We're good. Don't need it. Are these all-time highs on AVGO at 240? Yeah, those are all-time highs. No supply to all-time highs, but even here, supply, you hit it, you hit it. It's already had 2 touch points, so you're not going to look to trade that. Let's look at the weekly time frame on AVGO. AVGO is in a nice, could now be in a bit of a downtrend. We could have seen that shift. Low, high, higher, low, higher, high, higher, low, higher, high, lower, low. Could see a lower high, but we'd have to get a lower low before confirming that it's in any kind of downtrend. I mean, you got a little bit of a lower low, but was that a close or was that a wick on the weekly? Yeah, you got that open, pushed back up into that. So, I mean, overall, you still could see a bit of upside. Go back to the daily time frame. We have that nice big drop, base. You have this rally. You have another little drop, base, rally. I mean, you got some like demand sitting down here near the top end of that gap. So you got some daily demand down here. Right. Again, you got some down here as well because you have this nice little big drop. You get this base. You have that nice rally. And then again, you see a nice little drop, base, another rally, followed by that gap up. So that's going to be the nearest level of a demand that you have. You already came into it once. You pushed out of it. So just be mindful that once you created some of that daily demand and you gapped up, you already came down into it, popped out of it. So it has one hit. That's down around like 213.60 to 217.90, which is below that gap that we just discussed. So, I mean, that's another area that we could get down to and see a nice push out of it. We have that daily gap that we could fill first, push out of it. Or we can just simply come up and break that daily zone of resistance, hold it as support, and then completely fill that daily gap. Is there any other kind of analysis that you can do? Yeah, you can run fibs on this if you wanted to. So from like that swing low to that swing high, you had a 38.2 retracement. You pushed again. So then from that swing low here to that swing high, you came down to the golden pocket. You gapped up. So we are respecting those fib retracement levels, but you've already seen the retracement into the golden pocket before pushing back up. So I personally, if I were to expect the move higher, I wouldn't expect it to come back down to that lower gap. I'd expect to see it get a break of that zone, hold it, and then we could look to play that long simply based on the analysis that we've done. We come back down to the golden pocket again, right? And we start to see some daily lower lows coming in. I think there could be even more downside with AVGO. But at least right now, we have an idea of what we could expect. And so I would be hands off until we break that 237 zone. Break the 237 zone, we hold it, then I would start to think we can get the next leg up to 244 and fill that daily gap. So I wouldn't do puts off that zone personally. I mean, maybe. Is there anything else besides the zone? Right? Is there anything else besides the zone to grab puts off of it? Or is there anything that you see that makes you not want to take puts off that zone? Yeah, there's one thing that I see is when you have a stock that runs up into resistance, backs down, back into resistance, and then starts to build higher lows and consolidate under resistance, what does that normally tell you? You have a stock run up to resistance, and then it builds higher lows into resistance, and now it's consolidating while building higher lows under resistance. What does that typically tell you the stock is trying to do or getting ready to do? As to why I wouldn't want to get short off that zone, because the odds are against me. Because it is building higher lows into resistance. What does that break to the upside? Yes. So yeah, do we have a resistance level overhead? Yes. Could you short it off resistance? Yes. But look at the market. Flat resistance, higher lows. Typically, the stock is trying to break that level. There's a higher probability chance that we break resistance simply based on what the stock's been doing over the past couple of weeks versus actually getting another rejection for the downside for puts. So the puts would be against you. If anything, there's probably a higher chance that we break that level simply based on overall price movement, what we've seen here over the past couple of weeks. So I would still be more inclined to want to give it a chance to break that 237 zone, see if we can hold it as support, and then really be looking to play calls up to that 244 region. Would I get short off 244? No, I wouldn't personally. I just don't have enough reasoning right off the bat, besides it's the top end of the gap, to get short. So I would have to probably pass on puts altogether and be more or less focused on just looking to play those calls from 237 to 244. Yeah, no puts, man. Not yet. I think the puts are too risky. The odds are really against you to the short side based on everything we've discussed. And I think you're better off looking for the longs and playing calls on AVGO. What else we got? We got anything else, guys? I mean, AVGO has potential coming up. It's got some potential coming up, man. We'll keep it on watch. Come on, give it to me, guys. What else are you looking at today? I know there's not a lot of hot opportunity, but yeah, I mean, there's some decent plays out there. Check out CORZ if no one else asks. We got to get more people aware of the stream, man. So if you guys want to do me a huge favor and just share the stream on your socials, and you think anybody would find some value in being here just to be able to answer their questions, help them with analysis, and you guys enjoy the streams we put together, I think the biggest thing is just awareness that we even put together a stream here on YouTube in the first place. So it would be awesome to share it, to like it, to comment on this. It helps the algorithm, plus just getting it shared out there for other people would be an awesome help, guys. But yeah, there's like 10 people here right now, which is awesome. I get to help the 10 beautiful men and women that are here right now. I can dig it. But let's look at CORZ, Core Scientific, $12 stock. It's a little bit of a small cap penny. Recent IPO back in January 2024, so it's been around for about a year. I don't know much about CORZ personally. Yeah, earnings coming up in April. Stocks flat in pre-market. You had an insider share, 500,000 worth back in January. January 28th, you had another scientific insider sold shares worth 6 million. According to the SEC filing, someone else sold another $500,000 worth, about 400,000 worth. Again, that was what date? That was January 28th. And so, yeah, you ended up seeing the stock drop off pretty heavy due to that reasoning. Down into the 200 SMA, starting to try and build some higher lows since tapping and bouncing off that 200-day moving average. But it's having a really hard time getting back inside that daily gap. You can see that it's tried to get back inside this daily gap multiple times, but it's failed quite a bit. 1, 2, 3, 4 attempts to get inside this daily gap on CORZ, but it's failed. So at least we know, like, we got to get above 1320 and stay above 1320 to really get more upside on CORZ. Got a little bit of a daily downtrend here up against those all-time highs. And then that lower high before the big drop on off. So you got a little bit of a downtrend sitting there as well. You got the 50 SMA curling to the downside while the 200 is pushing up. If you continue to see CORZ kind of tap in between those two moving averages, right, that could be an inverse squeeze formation to the downside where you actually see some put opportunity or short opportunity on CORZ. So that's something to be mindful of. You did come down into a decent little level of support. Not only was it the 200-day moving average, but it was a decent little daily support level up against all of that prior resistance between 1068 to 1103. I mean, you hit it here several times. Back below it is resistance. Back below it is resistance. You break it, hold it as support, come back down to it again, as well as the 200 SMA to hold it. That at least gives you a little bit of a floor on CORZ. You got a bit of a floor there. Next area to the downside on CORZ would be right around this region here, between like 9 and 932. Again, we got above that zone. We held it as support. Nice bounce. Held it as support. Back above it, held it as support. Nice big push. At least you know where your next lower zone of support's going to be. On CORZ, it's down between 9 to 932. Our nearest floor of support's right here between 1070 to 1103. And then we have this daily gap to the upside on CORZ between 1320 to like $16. You got that big daily gap. What else? Is there anything else that we can do here to just like paint this picture? You could probably run some extensions on this if you wanted to. You could probably grab an extension from that swing high to the swing low. Take it back up to the swing high. Right there. I don't like it. I would remove it. Yeah, I mean, I think it really just comes down to like, what do we do up around that 1320 level? I mean, it is building some like short-term higher lows, but it's also building some lower highs. You see, it's kind of just like in this little wedge formation to the downside. If you look at the whole retail formation, you see leg down, followed by a period of consolidation. What is that? That's a bearish flag. That may indicate more downside. You got a lot of resistance at 1320. You got the 50 curling on down, 200 SMA curling on up. If we continue the trade in between those two moving averages and we get a squeeze, that's an inverse squeeze formation that could lead to more downside on CORZ. And even if you get a break over 1320, how much room would you really have to the upside? You'd have room up to the 50 SMA before you hit an area of resistance. So, I mean, how much upside would you really even get? Maybe like $1 of upside right, into the 50 SMA. That'd be like your first target. Then you have that downtrend as well near 15 bucks. So another area of resistance, that daily downtrend. I just don't see a lot, man. It's like it's 250-50. I see like maybe a gap fill long, but then I see a lot of overhead resistance. And then I see a few things that also stand out that make me think there could be more downside, which just kind of makes me 50-50 on overall sense of direction. Like I'm not higher confident in the long side compared to the long side or the short side or vice versa. It's just kind of one of those neutral looking stocks where I'm just not crazy about it. But that's what we have, man. I'd have to wait until, you know, the stock gets to one of those levels and does something for us. But like I said, I'm pretty neutral. I don't really get a sense of confidence of getting long, getting short, or vice versa. So, yeah, so typically ascending triangles, you're going to see those near resistance during uptrends. So, I mean, would you say you're in an uptrend? I mean, look at the daily. The thing has been downtrending for quite some time. I mean, overall, you could still see bigger picture downtrend. You typically don't see ascending triangles in downtrends. You typically see ascending triangles in uptrends. So if we were in a clear uptrend, right, for example, and then you saw that ascending triangle, like that's a continuation play. I would want to play that continuation maybe to the upside on that ascending triangle. But seeing that we're in a nice downtrend, you typically don't see good ascending triangle formations in downtrends. But again, that's just something that conflicts this. I mean, if you're just looking at the recent 30 days, you would say, well, it's uptrending over the last, say 30 days. But big picture, zoom out. Yeah, you can see this is a bit of an uptrend, but big picture, you're in a downtrend. So what is this to me? This is just a correction in the downtrend. You can see short-term little uptrends, little corrections in bigger downtrends. So bigger picture, downtrend, this to me is just a correction phase before maybe seeing more downside. And being in a downtrend, I wouldn't expect to see a proper ascending triangle play out. If anything, I would just focus on the gap level. Get inside the gap, stay inside the gap, maybe scalp it to the long side. You got room up to like 1420, and then maybe another little scalp up towards around that downtrend if we get there. But again, the more analysis I do, the more confliction that I have and that I see with CORZ. You see that? Cool. Thoughts on Baba? I looked at Baba last week, man. I'm not a fan of where Baba is. So let's look at Baba again, but there's just not a lot to do overhead. You got to flip this into a little bit of a larger time frame. That's going to really help you out looking at a larger time frame on Baba. A little drop base drop. So supply, you hit it 1, 2, 3, 4 times. I wouldn't even look at that level. Then you're going to have this level up here. That's a massive zone. But again, you do have drop, base, drop. Some would even say this was a rally, base, drop. Nice drop. We gapped up and then impulse to the downside. Maybe it looks better on a weekly, but that's going to be like the next area on up. Nice little drop, base, rally on the weekly, came down, tapped it, fell below it, little drop, base, rally. But you're below it now. So if we look at this little rally, base, drop, little rally, base, drop. Okay. So you would probably go right up in here. You want to take the high of your basing candles into the basing candle body. There's your drop, base, drop. Now you can extend that weekly supply, which overlaps the monthly supply. I like that little basing candle before that really nice impulsive move to the downside. So I'm going to take that candle there. Take it back into a daily time frame. Was that an earnings gap? That was an earnings gap, though. So you got to tread lightly with those earnings gaps. that was fundamentally driven to the downside. So with that being said, I just kind of, I put less weight on that level, since when we get into a daily, we see that it was a gap created around earnings. So that impulsive down was an earnings impulse on the weekly. You see it on the daily, it was just a big gap down on the daily, and that was driven from earnings. But then here's the next thing I would do, is I would just go ahead and mark up the gap on BABA. Because we can still trade the gap up into the top end of the gap, right? But are we anywhere close? I mean, we're not anywhere close to it. So, I mean, I just don't see a lot on BABA, personally. I don't really see a lot on BABA until we get up towards around the 150s. Maybe there's some action up around the 150s on BABA. So, I didn't know it was 9 o'clock. I got to go, guys. I got to go. Starting up the Zoom sesh with our students this morning. Got lost track of time. But have a good one, guys. Stay blessed. Trade smart, trade safe today. And I will catch you guys back here tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock on TikTok and YouTube, guys. Have a good one.